Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the high-stakes, ticking clock science of property restoration. You know, it's wild how fast things can go south in a house. We're going to use some real-world data from a case study in Glen Allen, Virginia, to map out exactly what happens when water turns from a daily necessity into a total structural nightmare. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so picture this. You're just sitting in your living room on a quiet afternoon, minding your own business, right? Then, suddenly, a hidden supply pipe bursts right behind the drywall, or maybe a washing machine hose just completely gives out. In literally seconds, your safe haven becomes an emergency zone. This happens in thousands of homes, but the sheer speed of the destruction, it almost always catches people completely off guard. Just to put that into perspective for you, 80 gallons. That's the amount of water a single ruptured water heater can unleash across your floors before you even realize what's happening. I mean, that's enough to fill 2 standard bathtubs and dump them right onto your floor. We aren't talking about a little spill you can just mop up with a couple of towels. This is a massive wave actively seeking the lowest point in your home, completely saturating absolutely everything in its path.
All right, moving on to Section 1, Mapping the Threat. Take our case study in Glen Allen. This area faces, well, a literal perfect storm of risk factors. You've got a humid subtropical climate where summer humidity regularly tops 70%, which is basically a VIP invitation for mold. Add in these expansive clay soils that shift and crack foundations, older split-level ranches, and, overworked HVAC systems that end up leaking into the ceiling, and you've got homes that are uniquely vulnerable to moisture intrusion. Which brings us to Section 2, the ticking clock. When we talk about water disasters, the speed is genuinely terrifying. Just think about the timeline. Within just the first 60 minutes, water is already wicking up into your drywall like a giant sponge. At 24 hours, the mold window officially pops open. And if you haven't dealt with it by 48 hours, active microbial colonization begins. Basically, your cleanup job just morphed into a hazardous biological situation. A true professional drying timeline takes about 3 to 7 days, but your window to extract that initial water shrinks by the absolute second.
So, how do we stop it? Section 3, Phase 1, Emergency Extraction.
Here is where you meet a little thing called hydrostatic pressure. Think of it like a giant invisible hand using gravity to just shove standing water deep into porous materials like wood and concrete. Honestly, you cannot fight this with a standard garage shop vac. No way. Professional crews have to deploy these massive truck-mounted extraction systems that suck up thousands of gallons an hour. They have to literally rip that deep moisture out before it permanently ruins the home's structural integrity. But these crews, they don't just pump water blindly. They actually classify it using strict industry standards, specifically the IICRC S500. Category 1 is your clean water, like a burst supply line. Not too bad. Category 2 is gray water, think washing machine discharge, which can actually make you sick. And then there's Category 3, grossly contaminated black water. We're talking raw sewage backups or river floods. This classification is absolutely crucial because it dictates whether your stuff can be safely dried or if it literally has to be ripped out and destroyed to protect your health. Okay, on to Section 4, Phase 2, the science of drying. This brings us to psychrometrics, which, well, is essentially where high-level engineering meets your living room. Technicians don't just plug in a bunch of fans and cross their fingers. They measure the exact grains of moisture per pound in the air. By calculating precise vapor pressure differentials, they can manipulate the room's thermodynamics to draw trapped water straight out of solid framing. It is an exact, calculated science designed to prevent any hidden rot. And this is exactly why the common DIY approach is usually a massive, massive mistake. I mean, a homeowner's first instinct is almost always to open the windows to air the place out, right? But remember those Glen Allen risk factors we talked about? Outdoor summer humidity is over 70%. So opening a window just invites more moisture inside to feed the mold. Instead, professionals seal the environment off completely. They use commercial dehumidifiers to establish negative pressure and strictly control the air exchange. Because at the end of the day, you simply cannot fight what you can't see. Even if a wall feels bone dry to the touch, gallons of water could be trapped right inside that wall cavity. That's why thermal imaging cameras and specialized moisture meters are deployed every single day on a job. Technicians log these readings to ensure materials are progressing toward a scientifically proven dry standard. If you miss that standard, you are leaving a ticking time bomb of mold behind your walls. Which leads us to Section 5. Phase 3, complete reconstruction.
This structured three-phase protocol ensures absolutely nothing slips through the cracks. First up, you have the 60-minute emergency extraction to stop the bleeding. Second, 3 to 5 days of controlled structural drying to remove the hidden threats. And finally, phase 3, code-compliant reconstruction. It's not enough to just, slap up some new drywall. All repairs must meet rigid local building codes to guarantee the home is actually physically sound and safe to live in again.
Now, behind the scenes of all this incredible science is the vital insurance equation. Because let's be real, none of this technology matters if you end up footing a massive bill due to bad paperwork. A professional response relies on rigorous daily photo documentation and precise estimates through industry-standard software like Xactimate. By providing undeniable, rock-solid proof of the damage and the progress, restoration companies ensure your homeowner's policy actually covers the devastating costs.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. The next time you hear a strange creak in your floorboards, or maybe you notice a sudden spike in your water bill, or even just hear a quiet hum from an aging water heater, ask yourself, are you truly prepared for the ticking clock of a water emergency? Knowing the science and understanding the sheer speed of the threat, well, that's your very first step. Thanks for tuning in.